The slap echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. Everyone froze. My wife Rebecca stood still, her cheek turning bright red under the harsh lights, and across from her, the HOA president Hadley Cole was frozen too, her hand still halfway in the air, like even she couldn't believe what she'd just done. 3 minutes later, the bailiff cuffed her wrists. 5 minutes after that, Rebecca sat in the judge's chair. Yeah, you heard me right. The woman who got slapped was the one about to deliver justice. I'm David Johnson. I am not the kind of guy who looks for fights. I build things, fix things, lend my ladder to neighbors, and don't bother them when they never give it back. When Rebecca and I bought our house in Maple Grove, I thought we'd finally found peace. A quiet cul-de-sac barbecues on weekends, kids on bikes, sprinklers whispering in the mornings. But peace. Peace attracts control freaks. And in our neighborhood, control had a name. Hadley Cole. Red lipstick, pearl necklace, clipboard glued to her hand, and she wore her authority like armor. She showed up the second night after we moved in. No cookies, no welcome to the neighborhood, just a sharp knock on the door and that flat smile. Good evening, she said, scanning our porch like a cop at a crime scene. Just making sure you're aware of our community standards. Trash bins must be hidden. Fence colors need HOA approval. And those herb boxes, she pointed to our windowsill, they're not exactly cohesive with the neighborhood aesthetic. She said, cohesive, like it was a curse word. Rebecca thanked her politely. I bit my tongue. We laughed it off after she left. Every neighborhood's got one right. A Karen with a clipboard. We had no idea she was more than that. She was a tyrant with bylaws. A week later, we got our first notice taped to the door. Violation unsightly leaves. Never mind that it was October, that every yard looked like a pumpkin exploded. We paid the fine $50 figuring it would smooth things over. It didn't. The letters kept coming. Bench doesn't align with community tone. Mailbox reflects poorly on HOA aesthetic. And then, the wheelchair ramp. Rebecca built it herself so her mother, who used a walker, could visit safely. It was sturdy, simple, painted white to match the house. Hadley called it an unauthorized structure. That one broke something in me. I wanted to tear up that notice right in her smug face. But Rebecca stopped me. She opened a binder she'd been keeping photos, letters, timestamps. We're not powerless, she said. We're patient. Her calm scared me more than Hadley ever could. Weeks passed. Every time I saw that red blazer marching down our street, clipboard clutched like a weapon, my jaw tightened. But soon I realized it wasn't just us. Susan Miller, the widow, 2 houses down, got fined for wind chimes. Noise pollution, Hadley said. Bob Carter, a retired mechanic, got threatened with a lawsuit for a flagpole she said was too tall. Even Emily, the college student renting a basement room, was written up for inconsistent parking alignment. Everyone hated her, but no one spoke up. Fear ruled Maple Grove, and Hadley wore that silence like a crown. Then came the day she declared war. It was a bright Saturday morning. Hadley strutted up our driveway with 2 HOA board members flanking her like bodyguards. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask questions. She just spoke loud enough for every neighbor to hear. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, she said, waving a paper in my face. You've ignored multiple violation notices. If you fail to pay all fines within 72 hours, the HOA will pursue legal action, including property seizure. My blood boiled. Property seizure over leaves and a ramp for an elderly woman. She didn't blink. Rebecca squeezed my hand. Steady, she whispered. But I could feel the eyes of the whole neighborhood on us. Susan peeking from her porch. Bob crossing his arms. Emily recording with her phone. Hadley's voice sliced through the air like a siren. That was the day I snapped. It wasn't about lawns or mailboxes anymore. It was about dignity. That night, Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, her binder spread open like a war map. She looked up and said one sentence. We're taking her to court. I remember laughing, but not from humor, from disbelief. We can't fight an HOA, Rebecca. They have lawyers' money. So do we, she said. We have truth. The next morning, she filed the lawsuit. Johnson versus Cole. Weeks turned into months. Letters became threats. Threats became ultimatums. The final one came in a thick envelope. Pay $12,000 or face foreclosure. I started doubting everything. Maybe we were being difficult. Maybe I should have just painted the fence her stupid beige. I looked at Rebecca one night and asked, what if she's right? What if fighting her ruins us? She closed her binder, slow and calm. David, she said softly, it's not about her anymore. It's about everyone she's bullied. If we don't stop her, no one ever will. That was the moment I stopped being afraid. When the court date finally came, it felt like Judgment Day. The air was thick, charged. Rebecca held my hand as we walked in. And there she was, Hadley Cole, marching into the courtroom like she owned the place. Crimson blazer, heels clicking like gavels. She didn't sit in the defendant's chair she occupied, it like a queen on her throne. Judge Reynolds' tall man, silver hair, voice sharp as glass, called the case to order. Johnson versus Cole. Hadley treated the courtroom like a stage. She interrupted, rolled her eyes, muttered insults. The judge warned her once, twice, but she just waved him off. Your Honor, she snapped, standing without permission. The Johnsons have been a blight on our community. They refuse to comply. They don't belong. Gasps rippled through the room. I felt my fists clench, but Rebecca's hand found mine again. Wait, she whispered. Our lawyer began presenting the evidence photos of fake violations letters about pine cones and unauthorized flora. The room buzzed with disbelief. The judge's eyebrows climbed higher with every page. But Hadley still couldn't shut up. Those rules are necessary, she barked. Without me, the neighborhood would collapse. I leaned just close enough for her to hear. Without you, it might finally breathe. A laugh escaped from somewhere behind me. Susan, probably. Hadley's face went crimson to match her blazer. Then came the bombshell. Our lawyer held up financial records missing HOA funds, thousands of dollars in fines that never appeared in the association's account. Hadley sputtered. That's none of your business. Judge Reynolds slammed his gavel. It's very much this court's business, Mrs. Cole. Her voice shook. You're all conspiring against me. She pointed at Rebecca. She's been undermining me since day one. She's manipulative, dangerous. She doesn't respect authority. Rebecca didn't move, didn't flinch, just stared at her, calm, silent. I swear that silence was louder than any shout. Then it happened. Hadley's face twisted. She stood up shaking. I won't let her make a fool of me, she screamed, and before anyone could react, she stormed across the aisle. The bailiff moved, but too late. The crack of her hand against Rebecca's face split the air like thunder. The room froze. I jumped up, rage boiling through me, but Rebecca raised her hand steady and commanding without even looking at me. Don't! She stood, brushed her hair back, and looked right at Hadley. Her voice was cold, steady, unshaken. You think that's power? That's fear. The silence that followed was suffocating. Judge Reynolds thundered Mrs. Cole. You are out of order, bailiff. Officer Harris grabbed at Hadley, who fought like a wild animal, shouting, You can't do this to me. I run this community. But her words rang hollow now. The judge looked down at his notes, then at Rebecca. Something in his expression shifted. He whispered to the clerk. The clerk whispered back. Check the credentials, he said quietly. The bailiff hesitated, looked at Rebecca. She gave a small nod like she'd been waiting for this moment. Then Judge Reynolds cleared his throat. This court recognizes Mrs. Johnson not only as the plaintiff in this case, but as a sworn member of the federal judiciary. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Hadley's face drained of all color. You're lying, she spat. You're setting me up. But the judge held up a file. Mrs. Johnson was appointed 3 years ago. Her record is spotless. Rebecca didn't smile, didn't gloat. I never wanted to reveal that, she said quietly. I wanted this to be fair. But Mrs. Cole's actions have crossed into criminal territory. The truth has to come out. The gallery erupted in whispers. Cameras flashed. Emily's voice cut through. Oh my God, she's a judge. Hadley screamed again. This is a conspiracy. But no one listened anymore. The judge turned to Rebecca. Given the circumstances, he said slowly, Mrs. Johnson will conduct the review of evidence. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Rebecca stepped forward. The red mark still burned on her cheek, but her posture, her calm, was unshakable. She took Hadley's seat, adjusted the microphone, and said in that steady voice of hers, "For too long this HOA has been a tool of fear, not service. Today, that ends." The first exhibits were financial records. Rebecca revealed copies of missing checks signed by Hadley herself, deposited into her personal account. The room gasped. Then came the testimonies. Susan stood, voice trembling, telling how she was fined for wind chimes. Bob spoke next, proud and firm about his too-tall flagpole. Emily played her video, the confrontation on our driveway, Hadley threatening to seize our property. Hearing her own words echo across the courtroom broke something inside Hadley. She slumped in her chair, handcuffed, eyes wide, silent now. Rebecca looked at her and said softly, "You called it order, but it was fear, and fear has no place in community." Judge Reynolds took over again. His voice was calm now, final. "This evidence will be forwarded to the district attorney. Mrs. Cole, you are hereby removed from your position and will face charges of fraud and harassment." The bailiff led her away. The red blazer, wrinkled pearls, crooked her crown, shattered. The room exhaled as one. The neighbors who once hid behind curtains stood tall again. For the first time in months, Maple Grove could breathe. I just sat there watching Rebecca gather her papers page by page, precise as ever. The same woman who'd built a ramp for her mother had just built a bridge for an entire neighborhood to walk free. As Hadley disappeared through the courthouse doors, still muttering to herself, I realized something I wish I'd understood months ago. Real power isn't loud. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't slap. It just tells the truth and stands its ground when it matters most.